Well, this one I definitely have thoughts for. So, hey guys, it's Daniel here, and sorry this video is a few days late, I do apologize for that, but I am finally here to talk about the final episode, and I guess the final episode ever, of this specific Walking Dead series. Because today, I'm here to talk about the 6th and final episode of The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live, titled The Last Time. Well, this is the last time I'm going to be giving my thoughts on an episode. I can see why it's called that. So, again, sorry to get this video out late, but I really wanted to record my thoughts on it, and I'm finally here to do about it. And, you know, I've been thinking about this for a few days now, trying to gather my thoughts, and I have to say that as a season finale, or I guess from our concerns, a series finale, as this might be the final episode of the show ever, I think it's really good for the most part. I think that this was a really good solid episode. Unfortunately, I do have my few little problems, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I really enjoyed this episode, but I can't deny that there were a few elements of the episode I felt like was poorly handled in a little bit of cases, but mostly because I was just shocked at how rushed this episode was, because I guess I'll get that out of the way first. I think this episode should have been a lot longer, and, well, there are many elements that I think are fantastic. Like, let's get the positive elephant out of the room. Rick has returned to Judith and RJ at the end of this episode, which I thought was fantastic. I thought that was honestly like a really satisfying thing for Rick to go across, and it's something I wanted to see, seeing Rick interacting with this Kaylee Fleming as Judith Grimes, and I'm glad I finally got that scene. And the fact he's interacting with RJ kind of felt like he was interacting with the younger Carl, which I loved as well. And I have a feeling that Rick isn't done yet, but if this was like the ending of his character, while I felt like with the episode being longer, I still think it would be a really good wrap-up to his story, but I definitely have the feeling that he's not done yet. But at the same time, the rushed way that, I guess I'll get another elephant out of the room in terms of the negative out of the room, Major General Beale is dead. Yep. Already, I thought they spent a bit more time before this, but already they've killed the big bad of the Walking Dead universe. He gets killed by Rick. I think that the death itself is amazing. What I'm not fond of, though, is the fact that they're doing it now. Now, I'll talk about it later on, but I felt like, okay, is that it for the CRM? So, let's get into the episode, and then we'll talk about those two moments, the ending scene and Major General Beale's death. So, we start off the episode, we have Rick and Michonne, who are trying to do what they said they were going to do last episode, which is break into the CRM, steal the information of Alexandria from Jadis' office, destroy it, and also take care of the Echelon briefing, which exposes the CRM for who they truly are. So, Rick starts to make his way through. He tries to create a lie for Pearl Thorne, who I guess is now all in it as well, which I guess I'll just say, well, okay, I guess Pearl Thorne is like a full-on villain in this episode, which it's okay, but not too fond. But we then get Major General Beale that shows up, and it seems that Rick is being asked by Major General Beale to come and talk to him. Now, this was one of the greatest scenes I've seen in the entire Walking Dead franchise, and that is Rick Grimes and Major General Beale having this really long conversation. I thought that the way that they handled it here is very well done, and it's like a display of what I really wanted from this rivalry, because I can definitely see a rivalry in that one moment, and I thought it was handled very well. Like, Andrew Lincoln and Terry O'Quinn's performance in this scene was fantastic. And we basically got Major General Beale, who's talking about a lot of the things that the CRM has done, like blowing up Omaha in World Beyond, and going to these various places. And one of the biggest recurring things about this episode is that they always have to show, like, reuse footage from the other shows in the Walking Dead franchise, and I thought that the way that they handled it very well is very good in this one episode, because we get to see, like, references to Rick from, like, earlier seasons, like seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I especially love that one moment where Rick is talking to Major General Beale, and Major General Beale says, "What is some of the most, like, disturbing things you've ever done to protect the people you love?" And Rick mentions that iconic season 4 scene where he bit Joe's neck out. Because if you can't remember, in season 4, episode 16, Rick was being attacked by Claymore Joe and his men, and he had to save Carl's life by biting his throat out, and whoa. Yeah, okay, that is definitely one of the most iconic Rick Grimes moments I've ever seen. And we also get to see a lot of the other things he had to do to protect himself, like shooting those 2 guys at the bar in season 2, which was technically his first human kills. I like they mentioned that. The throwdowns with the governor, Terminus, his, like, rivalry with Negan, I thought was very well done. And I like that they bring up, like, Rick and Negan's, like, rivalry to, like, mirror Rick and Beale's rivalry in this one scene. And of course we get a lot of references and usages from the other shows. One I did catch on to, which I don't know if this is exactly right, but it could be. There's a moment where you see, like, this oil field that is, like, being destroyed, and oil is leaking all over the place, and I'm like, is that the oil fields from Fear the Walking Dead? I was shocked, because if that is the case, then I guess a Rick Grimes series has officially used Fear the Walking Dead footage, which honestly makes this episode feel even more special, because I felt like a lot of the stuff they were doing throughout the entire franchise was leading up to this moment where we see, like, a little bit of combination. We don't get Madison Clark meeting Rick Grimes, but that's not really what this show is about, and I like that they reused all that footage. Meanwhile, we have Michonne, who manages to find the information of Alexandria in Jadis's office, which I do like that she hid it in that little cat sculpture that looked like the one she was creating in season 7 that Rick was going to get shown as replacement for the cat that she lost in season 3. She pulls the information out and rips it to shreds so nobody can know about it. So, well done, Michonne, you did it. And we get a really cool scene where Michonne hides in Jadis's room as a soldier comes out, and she kills the soldier, which, man, I felt like it's really a representation of Michonne releasing all of her angerment towards the CRM on this soldier for keeping her and Rick away from each other for so long. So I like that little bit. And we basically have Beale, who's talking about, like, the echelon briefing, while Michonne is looking at the echelon briefing and talking about how they're going to kill multiple communities in the next 18 hours or so, because he'll keep, like, a lot of people alive, but mainly he's talking about keeping 10% of children alive. Which, if it's 10% of children that you're keeping alive, what about the other percentage of children? Man, this is what I wanted to see, because I know that Beale is talking evil here, but man, that is really messed up when you think about it. And the fact that Jadis was even going along with this makes it even more satisfying that she died in episode 5. And we have Michonne that looks at it, and you can clearly tell that while she's looking at this news and plans for the CRM, you can clearly tell her terrifying this as she thinks about her children, because what if the CRM comes towards Alexandria and bombs her children? And of course, being the very protective mother she is, she's not going to let that happen. So she makes her way out of the echelon briefing, and we basically find out Beale's plans. One thing that this episode has, like, announced is that there was supposed to be a moment in this episode that changes the franchise. Either it's meant to be this one, which I believe could be the case, because we see multiple footages from other Walking Dead shows like The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, and World Beyond. Or it's this next part, which, okay, I've been putting it off long enough. Now let's go into probably my only big issue with this episode. Now, I do have a couple little issues, but most of them are like nitpicks, and it's mainly due to the rushness of this episode, which just felt too short. But there's this one moment in the episode that I have a big issue with. Not because it was badly represented, but the fact that they decided to do it now. So, and you heard me talking about it earlier in the video, so I guess you probably know what I'm talking about. we have Major General Beale, who pulls out the sword that he's weaponizing and asks Rick to possibly lead the CRM after he's gone, and asks him to swear on the sword. And Rick thinks back to all of the memories that he's had with, like, talking with Okafor, like, saying, swear on the sword, and also talking about the many threats that Rick and Michonne have faced, including the governor, and right before he attacks Beale, he thinks about his final battle with Negan, which, again, I love that they're mirrorizing that to this scene. And we basically have Rick that gets up, attacks Beale, and, well, we get to this 15-second fight between them. So this is how Major General Beale goes out. And I will say that this scene was absolute amazement, because Rick pulls out the sword that Beale uses, stabs it through his hand as he's on the ground, and looks Beale right in the eyes with those deadpan eyes that I think Negan even hated in Season 7, and he's like, "You were not dead. We live a life, an unstoppable life," and Major General Beale just gets killed by Rick. So, okay, let's talk about this. So, like, right before I saw the episode, this scene was spoiled for me. So, unfortunately, I was spoiled on the internet, so unfortunately, I knew about it. And before I saw the episode, I was thinking so long and hard about this scene, because initially when I heard the spoiler, I was so angry, because this was meant to be, like, the big, like, bad for the franchise. Like, this was meant to be, like, endgame style stuff for the frickin' franchise, and the fact that they're killing him now, I was not the biggest fan of. Now, after watching the episode for real, and seeing the scene in the episode for real, I think that the representation of this death scene was well done, and it really is Rick's, like, big moment, where you feel like that all of the scenes with him facing his threats and everything he's been through has been leading up to him killing the big threat to the world and to him and his family. I thought that it was really, really well done. But why the hell did you not give Beale more screen time before this scene? Because it just felt really rushed. Like, I like the scene, I love the scene, but I felt like it's a scene you could have saved for, like, another season of Ones Who Live, or a different spin-off. Like, the fact that they're doing it now kind of alters, like, the endgame style stuff for the franchise, because now, I guess I'll just bring this up real quick, CRM is kind of wrapped up in this whole episode. Like, all this time showing how big of a threat CRM is, and the fight to defeat them only took one episode. Even though the Saviors, like, literally, Season 8, that whole season was about even trying to defeat the Saviors, but they managed to defeat a threat that's even 10,000 times more bigger than the Saviors in one episode? I don't have a problem with them fighting off all those CRM soldiers by blowing them up, but Beale is the only thing they could have changed, because we barely got any scenes with him in the show, because we only had about 3 scenes to get to see him, and I get that this is meant to be Rick and Michonne's story, but if it's meant to be Rick and Michonne's story, then don't give Beale focus, that's fine. But don't kill him yet and save him for something else where you can give him some more focus. And if you're just going to kill him right now and here, you should have given him more focus earlier on in the series. I mean, I don't think they should have avoided both options. They can't do both. It's like it's trying to have its cake and eat it too. Like, what about his son in World Beyond? We never got, like, any mentions of him having a son at all. It's like it never happened at all. Why did he all of a sudden want to have connections with Jadis from the trash yard in the first place? And I just felt like there could have been more stuff we could have explored with Major General Beale, but I guess now we can't have that. Again, I love the scene, I thought it was fantastic, but if I were to write the scene a bit differently, here's what I would do. I wouldn't have had Rick, like, had this talk with Major General Beale until later on, or maybe they could have done it now, but it's like almost like the end of Season 7 when Rick was talking with Negan, and then they move on, and then they have to meet up and fight each other in the big climax another time. Instead, I felt like what should have happened is that maybe Beale would have tricked Rick into thinking that he died from his perspective, when really, he survived. And if they're trying to leave it open-ended, and maybe Terry O'Quinn didn't want to come back, then they could have done something like the explosion that happens is like almost close to where Beale was, but he still got far away, and then he runs, like, out of frame, and the explosion comes by, and then we get, like, theories about whether or not he's survived. We give Terry O'Quinn, like, time to make up his mind on whether or not he wants to come back. I get that they want to have Rick and Michonne prove that their love can beat the odds, but A, I feel like it would have been a little bit unrealistic in some cases, which we'll get to that later, and 2, I felt like that the fact that Beale just died in that moment without having, like, a real fight with them, which I get that he's, like, 70 or something, but even 70-year-olds can, like, be, like, total action stars. I mean, look at Mike Ehrmantraut in Breaking Bad, or Daniel Salazar in The Fear of the Walking Dead. I'm a little disappointed in some cases. I mean, everything else in the episode I thought was great, and I think Beale as a character and as a villain was good for the time he had to be in, but the fact that they just killed him off straight away like that, I'm not gonna lie, I am pretty disappointed with Beale as a villain, because where are we gonna go with this now? Because are we just gonna be focusing on the French people? Which, okay, technically that would kind of make sense, considering that they had, like, that post-credits scene at the end of World Beyond, but I thought Beale in the CRM was meant to be, like, the endgame star with the franchise, and it doesn't even seem like we're done with the franchise yet. So, I mean, I get that we have, like, the Civic Republic as well, because that's a totally separate thing, so they might do something with that, and the experiments there, so maybe that might be a threat, and maybe the whole rest of the franchise is about reuniting our characters. But with Beale, I felt like that everything in the episode could have gone and just not have Beale killed. I'm sorry that I've been talking about Beale most of this video, but I just had to say it. I felt like that with the time that he had, I thought he was good, and I thought he was really good in this episode. But unfortunately, this franchise has criminally underused him. So, after that, we have Rick that is sneaking the dead Beale across the CRM building, and we have this really awesome fight that Rick has with this CRM soldier, which results in him using, like, his hand and just punching his face again and again and again and again until his skull cracked. It's like it's meant to be like a build-up to, like, when Rick was talking to Shane or to Spencer, where he kept mentioning, I wanted to break your jaw, I will break your jaw. He does it to this soldier, which I think is, again, another great, like, build-up to the scene. And we have Rick and Michonne that reunite and are now putting their plan into action to blow up the bombs the CRM is going to blow Portland up with. And, well, then we get to another few little nitpicks with the episode, and it's during this scene. I think that Rick and Michonne's plan is really brilliant, using zombies to, like, blow up the bombs by connecting them to grenades. I like that, but I felt like, okay, CRM, I know that you're having this, like, big meeting in front of the bombs, but couldn't you at least put, like, a few soldiers around to, like, guard the bombs to make sure no walkers or any possible threats of people is gonna get through? Because we know that Jadis never came back, so did they even know about that? I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong, but I felt like you didn't put any guards there. And also, we get to, like, the biggest confirmation, and it's something that I was really upset about, which is the zombified Beale. I was like, what? So this really does confirm that Beale is dead. The idea of him dying, I love. What I'm not fan about is the fact that they're doing it now, instead of saving it for something else. Like, really? Seriously? I don't know, I just, again, I have to carry on with this video because this video is as long as it is, but we have Pearl Thorne, who figures out that Rick and Michonne actually know each other, and they're planning to destroy the CRM, so she has to make a quick course of action, and, well, then we get to another little issue I had with the episode, and I felt like that, okay, I guess Pearl Thorne is our final threat for this episode, because she's the final villain we have to fight in the episode, even though I felt like Beale should have earned that spot. And I'll tell you what, and I can't believe it took me this long to realize it. Actually, I did kind of realize it a few days ago, but I can't believe I didn't mention it now, that this whole, like, climax, while cool, really reminded me of the climax of The Dark Knight Rises, because think about it, you have this big threat that is Bane, or Beale, that dies before the climax is over, and now we have a secondary villain that we have to fight at the end, this, like, woman who's, like, speaking a different language and all that stuff. It really reminds you a lot of The Dark Knight Rises, and the fact that they didn't put any guards around the bombs really reminds me of how Bane didn't think to put guards around the prison that he put Bruce Wayne in that movie. So, wow, I can't believe I realized it. But we get something good in this climax. We have the fight between Michonne and Pearl Thorne, which I thought was great, because it's really showing Michonne putting Pearl in her place for almost trying to kill Michonne in episode 3. So this is Michonne showing that she shouldn't do that, which honestly, I felt like she definitely deserved what she got, because Michonne picks up the swords and stabs Thorne, and she dies. Which, honestly, yeah, really good. Although we didn't actually see her die on screen, but I assume she's dead. And we have the bombs that blow up, and, well, okay, another thing I have to mention is that, okay, Michonne and Rick put themselves under a wet blanket. Wet blanket. That's kind of funny. But weren't they pretty close to the explosions? Like, is that how it works? The blanket, like, is so close to an explosion, but it guards you? Wet blanket? Is it because, like, poison gas or something? I don't know. But the fact that Pearl was perfectly fine putting on a gas mark after an explosion happened, and she wasn't too far away from it, like, don't you think she would have gotten blown away? Like, how's she still in the same position? Like, I don't know. There are a few things in this episode that just don't add up, but it doesn't take away from the fact that, overall, I thought this was a fantastic episode, and we have the climax where Michonne kills Pearl Thorne, Rick tries to fight off against these walkers, puts a grenade in between, like, walkers that he's fighting and walkers that's behind him, and blows up the walkers, which made Michonne think that, you're not telling me don't tell me that he died again, but the good news is, he didn't, which... okay, I guess I can buy of that a little bit. I mean, it's a little bit weird that they did that, but I guess the walkers that Rick was fighting in front of him blocked the grenade, so what the hell. I'll buy it, because we really don't want to kill Rick and Michonne, especially not Rick Grimes. We don't want to kill Rick Grimes after he just came back, so... we blow up the CRM soldiers, the evil part of the CRM, and we get the epilogue, which... okay... I said a few issues, like a few little nitpicks in this episode, but then we get the epilogue of the episode, like the ending, which I think is one of the greatest Walking Dead endings to a Walking Dead season or show ever. So we have the epilogue where we hear about the CRM's new plans to rebuild the world. So the evil part, led by Beale of the CRM, is destroyed, so now the Civic Republic has changed their ways. They're no longer going out and killing people who know about the Civic Republic. They are now going to let people in if they want to come in, and they're allowed to leave whenever they want. They're not keeping people against their free will ever again, because now they are really building up a real community that wants to help people. I think that is a fantastic way to close off the end of the CRM. Again, though, I'm really not fond that they're doing it now. I felt like they could have saved it for, like, the final Walking Dead show, like this possible crossover series that they're doing, but I guess we're just seeing it now, so what? I wonder what the rest of the franchise is going to lead to. Rick and Michonne make their way to a field, which, I felt like that... okay, I just gotta mention this again real quick. I felt like this episode was too freaking short, okay? It's only like 45 minutes long, and I felt like it could have been like an hour and 5 minutes or an hour and 10 minutes, and it would have been an amazing episode even more, which I think it's an amazing episode already, but I felt like it could have been more if it was longer. And we get the ending scene, which is definitely my favorite part of the episode, and that is Rick and Michonne reuniting with Judith and RJ. That scene, I thought, was absolutely emotional. I can't deny how great that scene was. The performances from Andrew Lincoln, Denai Guerrera, and Kaylee Fleming was fantastic. I don't know the actor who plays RJ, and I thought he was pretty good in the episode as well. But I loved seeing Rick finally getting to meet, or re-meet, an older Judith. That is something I've been wanting to see for a very, very long time, and I'm glad that we finally got in this episode, and it's so emotional seeing that. And then we also get Rick, who finally gets to meet RJ. And I think that this was a fantastic callback to earlier seasons of The Walking Dead, when Rick was talking to a younger Carl in those seasons. And I like the little touch that Rick touches the hat that RJ is wearing, because that's the same hat that he wore when he was a cop before the outbreak, that he then gave to Carl, that Carl then gave to Judith, that Judith then gave to RJ. And when he touches it, it's like... It really reminded me of when he first gave the hat to Carl back in Season 2, which, again, makes this scene feel even more satisfying. And if this was the end of Rick, I would make a few touches to the episode. I would have made the episode a bit longer, and maybe, like, switch out a few of the battles. Like, I felt like Rick and Beale could have had a longer battle before he died, or maybe just save it for something else. But this ending scene, while... it did come at a very rushed time, didn't change the fact that the scene was so well done, and it was an amazing end to Rick's character. Even though, can I just address another elephant in the room? I don't think Andrew Lincoln's done with the franchise. I don't think that's the end of Andrew Lincoln. Yes, he has a fantastic conclusion in this episode, and he can definitely take a longer break after that. But you still got more to show. You have to see him reunite with Daryl, you have to see him reunite with Morgan, and hell, I would really not mind if I saw a reunion between him and Negan. That would be fantastic. But he needs to reunite with all the characters, even if Dead City takes place after this, which I will admit, I think that Dead City definitely took place after Rick came back, which is something my brother said. But I definitely think that Rick should come back. It's definitely not done with the franchise until, like, the final Walking Dead show that we have in the next 3 or 4 years, probably. And honestly, that ending scene just gave me chills, and it really made me feel emotional, and I thought it was a fantastic end to the episode, and to the series, and to Rick Grimes, for now, until we get to see him again in the future. Which I hope they don't make us wait long, by the way. So, that is... Episode 6. That is the final episode of The Ones Who Live. So, first off, I thought this was a fantastic episode, but I'm really not fond of how rushed the episode was, because I felt like there was definitely some things that they could have, like, tackled longer. I felt like that the epilogue should have been longer, which I believe there's a deleted scene, but that's it for Beale? Like, what's next? What do we have now? The French people from Daryl Dixon? Is that the final threat? Or is it like a few leftover experiments that the Civic Republic is doing? I don't know. I'm sorry this video is very long, but I really needed to get all of my, like, thoughts out of the window. But it didn't change the fact that this was still a really good episode. I love the ending to the CRM, even though I felt like it was still really rushed. I love the final scene of the episode with Rick and Michonne finally reuniting with their children, and I thought that overall, The Ones Who Live is one of my favourite installments to the Walking Dead franchise. It was a fantastic series, and it almost gave me everything I wanted to see from a Rick Grimes return, and Andrew Lincoln, you're the man. I hope that you have fun with your break, but I do... hope that you come back later on in the franchise to close things off, like, for everything. So anyway, I'm Daniel, reviewing movies, TV shows, doing videos. I hope you enjoyed my videos talking about each episode of The Ones Who Live. This is going to be the final one. Kind of bittersweet, because are we really here this quick? Like, I kind of feel bad it's over. And I'm Daniel, reviewing movies, TV shows, doing videos, loving the return of Rick Grimes. Till then, peace out, man.